photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Photosynthesis has a general equation which is CO2, carbon dioxide plus water to give us glucose and oxygen. In the manufacturing of food, in autotrophic nutrition, the main product is actually glucose. And how this glucose is formed is the concern of the nutritionist, or the major reason why we are classing the two types of autotrophic nutrition as photo and chemosynthesis. The use of light energy to bring about the combination of CO2 and water to form glucose is actually photosynthesis. We use light energy to do this. In chemosynthesis, this photosynthesis is common to green plants. Green plant. In fact, the green nature of the plants is actually because of the chlorophyll that is used to capture light energy. And the light energy is used for many, majorly for splitting of water into its constant ion, which will now be used to reduce carbon dioxide to form glucose. That's for that. We'll talk about that when we get to photosynthesis or nutrition in plant fully. Chemosynthesis, on the other hand, is using chemical energy to bring about the combination of CO2 and hydrogen to form glucose. But in this case, the energy is actually sourced from breaking down of hydrogen sulfide to release hydrogen, and CO2 is combined with the released hydrogen to form what we call the glucose that this organism is making use of. Majorly, this chemosynthesis is common to lower plants or the seedless plants like the bacteria, majorly bacteria, the bacteria in particular to say. Now we have also the nitrosoma is a special type of bacteria that helps in fixing nitrogen. They break down or they help to produce nitric acid by combining ammonia with oxygen. The nitrite is later converted to nitrate acid, nitrate acid, which is HNO3. And in the process, energy is released. The energy released in the process is actually used to push or to combine carbon dioxide and water to form glucose that is needed by this organism. So bacteria, most of the bacteria, they make use of this kind of process to manufacture glucose. Now back to the second type, which is heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition, as we have earlier said, kind of nutrition in which the organism will have to depend or feed on already manufactured food and make use of the food. Now this heterotrophic nutrition has some parts that we need to understand. The first part we need to understand is the feeding. How is this organism obtaining the food? Feeding. Aside from feeding, how is this organism obtaining the food? That is feeding aspect. Then later we'll be looking at the digestion aspect before the food is being absorbed. So the feeding aspect of heterotrophic nutrition. So we have different types of feeding in organism, which I want us to quickly look at before we end to this class. Types of feeding. The types of feeding that we have in heterotrophic nutrition, don't forget that in heterotrophic nutrition, this organism, they will have to obtain the already manufactured food. In the case of autotrophic nutrition, the food is manufactured by them. So they know the type and they know how to actually regulate the food in the amount or in the size. They will make use of it without further digestion. So the autotrophic don't need digestion. They just manufacture the food in the size, in the molecule. They will need it for their activities. But in the case of heterotrophic nutrition, the organisms involved, they will have to break down the obtained food. So the process of obtaining this food is called feeding. Feeding is just obtaining the food. And the types of feeding, I will be mentioning some types of feeding. The first one is holozoic feeding. Holozoic feeding. Holozoic feeding. Holozoic feeding is a type of feeding in which the heterotroph, I'm coming to another term, heterotroph. The word heterotroph is from the word heterotrophic nutrition. So heterotroph are organisms or animals that feed on already manufactured food. So the heterotroph, we just bring this together and remove the feed. So that is heterotroph for you. Now the heterotrophs that exhibit holozoic feeding, what they do is they have in their body a cavity like structure where they drop the obtained food. Once the food is obtained, they will drop this obtained food into a holo-like structure. In fact, that's where the name came, holozoic, a cavity-like structure where the food is being digested. And the animals or the heterotrophs that exhibit this, there are so many. It's common to both plants and also animals. You may be saying why and the plant again. Yes, for the animals, those animals that are carnivores, herbivores, omnivores, they exhibit holozoic feeding because once they obtain their food, they drop the food in a hollow part through the mouth. Yes, the opening part. Animals even like hydra that has an opening called the mouth also have a cavity called enteron. It drops its food, its captured food, its paralyzed food into a hollow part called enteron. So the hydra also exhibits what we call holozoic feeding. So the food is obtained and dropped in a hollow part or in a cavity like structure. That is holozoic feeding. Now the second one I want to mention in the course of the class is saprophytic feeding. Saprophytic and phytic feeding. In the case of saprophytic feeding, the organism involved is going to feed on dead, decayed matter. That's what saprophytes. They feed on dead, decayed matter. That is where the name came from, saprophytic feeding. Now we have other types of feeding like filter feeding. Filter feeding. In the case of filter feeding, the heterotrophs involved, we have to obtain the food with the fluid in which the food is suspended and allow the fluid to drain away, retaining only the solid food. I'll come again. For filter feeding, the animals involved will have to obtain the food alongside the fluid in which the food is suspended. And in this case, the animal will later allow the fluid to drain away, retaining only the solid material. This type of feeding is found in duck. When you notice duck, after picking up the food in water, shake their head to allow water to drain away, retaining the food in their mouth. You also find it in whale, we have it in shark also. They live in water, they take both the solid material and the food, so the solid food and the water, then allow the water to drain away, retaining the solid food. So we have the example, we have the shark. For the saprophytic feeding, we have more of, we have that the saprophyte, we have housefly, yes, housefly. Then the holozoic, we have the carnivore, herbivore, etc. For the filter feeding, we have shark, we have whale, we have duck, etc. Then we have, for filter feeding also, I want you to put this major example into consideration. Filter feeding, we have mosquito larvae. Mosquito larva. Mosquito larvae exhibit filter feeding. Very important. Take note of that. Then we have another kind of feeding. We call that one fluid feeding. So organisms exhibiting fluid feeding, they are not fluid feeder. Fluid feeding. Organisms in this case, the heterotroph in this case, they feed on fluid-like material. They feed on fluid-like material. So the food they feed on is actually liquid in nature. And the organisms involved in this, they have their mouth parts modified to feed on this fluid. Most of them have what called proboscis that is designed to feed on this fluid. Example of fluid feeder is mosquito. You see why I said you should not forget the example of mosquito larva. Mosquito larva is a developmental stage of mosquito. And at that stage, they exhibit filter feeding. But the adult mosquito exhibit fluid feeding. They will have to feed on fluid strictly using their developed proboscis. Proboscis, their mouth is developed to, the proboscis is a kind of mouth parts that have been developed to suck, pierce and to suck, or to suck fluid in the process of feeding. Not only mosquito, we have other animals that exhibit fluid feeding. Other examples are bugs, aphids, mosquito, mentioned that before, butterfly with coiled proboscis. They all exhibit fluid feeding. I will end this types of feeding with this special type of plants that lives in nitrogen deficient environment. For the fact that they are living in nitrogen deficient environments and they need this nitrogen at all costs, they develop different means by which they obtain their nitrogen. Most of them become a death trap for some invertebrates, and in the process they digest the invertebrate and they extract out of them nitrogen, and they become plants that exhibit holophytic feeding, holophytic mode of nutrition. Holo, don't forget, holozoic is for animal. The zoic is from the word zoology. Now the holophytic, the phytic is more phytology is more of plants. Now the holophytic plants, I think I should put that one on the board for you to see. Holophytic now, and put it here, holophytic plants. They also have a hollow parts where they drop the food they obtain. Example of these plants are, we have the sundew. We also have Venus fly trap flower. We also have bladderwort, then etc. These plants, they exhibit holophytic mode of nutrition. Hope with this little, let me just summarize all we have said so far. We have been able to define nutrition as the process by which organisms will actually obtain their food and make use of it. And the types are autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Under heterotrophic, we have the photosynthesis of the phototrophic, and we have the chemosynthesis, which is also known as chemotrophic. Then we have the types of feeding. You have the holozoic feeding, saprophytic feeding, filter feeding, fluid feeding, and we have the holophytic plants. The next class we shall continue the on other aspects of nutrition. Thank you.